Harold's hands had been shaking for 3 years now. The young bank teller rolled her eyes every time he tried to sign a check. "Can't you write any faster, old man?" she'd say. But what she didn't know was that these same shaking hands once held the steadiest aim in the entire U.S. Marine Corps. Harold Mitchell walked into First National Bank, a 72-year-old man with white hair and a slightly hunched posture. He moved slowly toward the counter with his cane. Parkinson's disease had been diagnosed 3 years ago, and the tremors were getting worse each day. "Good morning," he said to the young woman at the counter. This was Jessica, 25 years old, impatient and lacking empathy. "Oh, you're here again," Jessica said, clear irritation in her voice. "Another check to deposit today?" Harold nodded. "Yes, my pension check." Okay, she cut him off. "Fill out the form, but please hurry up. There's a line behind you." Harold took the pen with his trembling hands. He tried to write, but the letters came out shaky. Jessica didn't say anything, but she let out an obvious sigh. One of the customers behind him, a young man in a business suit, muttered, "How long is this going to take?" Harold tried to steady his hand, but couldn't. That was the cruelest part of Parkinson's. The mind was clear, but the body rebelled. "Come on, old man, speed it up," said another customer from the back. "We all have jobs to get to." Harold looked up. There was exhaustion in his eyes, but also deep pain. He'd been dealing with this for 3 years. The same looks everywhere, the same impatience, the same disrespect. Jessica finally lost her patience. "Look, Mr. Mitchell, maybe someone should help you with this. Trying to do these things with hands that shake so much." "What do you mean?" Harold asked, his voice calm but with underlying tension. "I mean, you're getting up there in age. Maybe you shouldn't be handling these kinds of things yourself. Don't you have kids? They could take care of this stuff." The customers behind him agreed. "Yeah, really, when someone's hands shake like that at this age, maybe someone else should handle these things." The young businessman stepped forward. "Sorry, but it's probably dangerous for you to even drive. How do you hold a steering wheel with those hands?" Laughter could be heard. Harold's face turned red. He'd never experienced such humiliation in his entire life. Jessica continued. "Plus, this isn't practical at all. Every transaction takes hours. Maybe you should learn online banking." "Oh, but that's probably too complicated for you." "Yeah," said another customer. "We're in the digital age now, coming here at your age and making everyone wait." Harold put down the pen. His hands were still shaking, but a different light appeared in his eyes. For the first time in years, he was truly angry. "I heard what you said about my hands," Harold said, his voice low but determined. "Yes, unfortunately," Jessica said, "it's just old age." "Do you know what these hands have done?" Harold asked, raising his voice. The bank went quiet. Everyone turned to Harold. Harold stood up. He put down his cane and raised his hands. They were still trembling, but there was a completely different power in his posture. "These hands," Harold said, "once belonged to the most accurate marksman in the United States Marine Corps." Jessica's face changed. The customers stared in shock. "I served 23 years in the military, from Vietnam to the Gulf War. These trembling hands," Harold showed his hands, "were once steady enough to hit a target from 1,200 meters away." Harold pulled out an old photograph from his pocket. This photo was taken in Vietnam in 1968, during the siege of Sanh. He placed the photo on the counter. A young soldier with a sniper rifle, serious looking. "That day," Harold continued, "we were surrounded. An enemy sniper was picking off our guys one by one. Nobody could lift their heads." Harold's voice began to strengthen. He was no longer that old, trembling man. A veteran was speaking. "My commander said to me, 'Harold, you need to find that sniper and neutralize him. Otherwise, none of us are going home.'" Harold closed his eyes, as if reliving that day. "I waited for hours. Breath control, heart rate control. Back then I had an M40 sniper rifle." At 2 in the afternoon I saw him 800 meters away, behind a tree. Only part of his head was visible. Harold raised his hands as if taking the position from that moment. These hands, he said, showing his trembling hands, didn't shake at all that day. I held my breath, slowly squeezed the trigger, and— Harold paused. One shot, target down. That sniper never fired again. That day I saved the lives of 26 of my brothers. You could hear a pin drop in the bank. Jessica and the other customers stared at Harold in shock. But the real story, Harold continued, happened in 1991, during the Gulf War. Harold pulled out another photograph, this time in desert uniform, a bit older but still determined looking. During the Gulf War, I was 45 years old. Normally you don't get sent on active combat duty at that age, but I had a record. 687 confirmed targets. That day, Harold's voice began to tremble, but this time from emotion. We had a missing reconnaissance team, 6 young soldiers. They were trapped behind enemy lines. A rescue team was sent, but they came under heavy fire. They couldn't help. Those kids were going to die. Harold opened his eyes and looked at Jessica. My commander said to me, "Harold, you're those kids' only chance. You need to neutralize the enemy snipers from 1,200 meters out." The operation lasted 12 hours lying in the sun. No water, no food, just my rifle and these hands. Harold showed his hands. These hands neutralized 11 enemy snipers that day, each one from over 800 meters away, 1 shot each. The most critical moment of the operation, Harold continued, happened toward evening. The rescue helicopter was coming, but there was one last enemy sniper. That sniper could have taken down the helicopter. 8 people could have died. The 6 missing soldiers plus 2 pilots. Harold's hands were still shaking, but as he told the story, it was as if he was living that moment. The distance was 1,347 meters. There was wind. The sun was setting, light was fading. I had 1 shot, because once I fired, my position would be compromised. Either I hit him, or they'd hit me. Harold paused. I held my breath, counted my heartbeats, calculated the wind, and I fired. From 1,347 meters, with 1 shot, I neutralized that sniper. The helicopter landed safely. 6 young soldiers were rescued. Several bank customers had tears in their eyes. Jessica didn't know what to say anymore. Harold pulled out a small box from his pocket. "This is the Bronze Star Medal I received for that operation, awarded for valor." He opened. Harold sat back down. Parkinson's doesn't just affect the hands. Sometimes I have trouble speaking, sometimes walking, but in my mind I still have those operations, those lives I saved. When I come here, Harold gestured around the bank, I don't expect to be honored. I just want to be treated like a human being. But you, Harold turned to Jessica, think I'm just some old guy with shaky hands. But these hands belong to one of America's most valuable soldiers. Jessica was crying now. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Mitchell. I didn't know You didn't know," Harold said calmly, "because you didn't ask. You just assumed." The young businessman stepped forward. We really messed up. You're a hero." Harold shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who did his job. Then and now." Harold stood up. "Let me tell you something. Every elderly person you meet in life has a story. Maybe those trembling hands once saved lives. Maybe those slow-moving legs once ran across battlefields. Maybe that forgetful mind once made critical decisions." Harold turned to the customers. "Never ever judge someone based on their physical condition, because the body may age, but the soul and achievements are eternal." The businessman was filled with shame. "How can we make this right?" "By teaching this lesson to others," Harold said. "By showing respect to the elderly. By listening to their stories." Jessica got up from behind the counter. "Mr. Mitchell, from now on, I'll give you special service every time you come in, and I'd like to hear your stories." "Thank you," Harold said, "but all I want is normal treatment." Harold signed the check. It was still shaky, but now no one made a sound. Everyone waited respectfully. As he finished the transaction, Jessica asked, "Mr. Mitchell, do you still keep in touch with those soldiers you saved?" Harold smiled. "We meet every year on Veterans Day. James brought his grandson last year. 'This is my grandpa,' he told the kid. 'This man saved my life.' And you know what that little kid said?" Harold's eyes lit up. "He said, 'So you're like a superhero.' And I said, 'No, son, I'm just someone who did his job.'" Harold picked up his cane and walked toward the door. "But maybe," he added, "maybe we're all a little bit superhero, just in different ways." At the door, he turned around. "By the way," he said, "if you think shaky hands mean you can't aim, you're wrong. Last week I showed them at the local shooting range that I can still hit the target. It just takes a little longer now." He left with a smile. There was silence in the bank. Then slowly everyone went back to their business, but with a different understanding. Everything changed at First National Bank after that day. Jessica began treating elderly customers completely differently. She waited patiently, helped them, and listened to their stories. A week later, Harold came in again. This time, Jessica stood up. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell. How can I help you today?" "Just doing my regular transaction, Jessica, thank you." During the transaction, Jessica asked, "Mr. Mitchell, we're thinking of starting a special service for veterans like you at our bank. What do you think?" Harold thought about it. Not special treatment, just respectful treatment is enough. "Of course," Jessica said, "but maybe a program where we can listen to your stories." "That's a nice idea," Harold said, "because everyone has a story to tell." That day, as Harold left the bank, the most important thing he left behind was the lesson about not judging others. 3 months later, a small ceremony was held at First National Bank. Harold Mitchell was given a service award. But when Harold accepted this award, he said, "This award isn't for me. This award is for the lesson we all learned. The lesson about not judging people by their appearance." The crowd in the hall applauded. Jessica was there too, her eyes moist. "Every person you meet in life," Harold said, "has probably experienced things in their past that you could never imagine. The person you dismiss as just old might have had skills that could save your life. The person you mock for having shaky hands might have made the world a safer place with those very hands." Harold raised his hands. They were still trembling. "These hands aren't perfect anymore, but there's honor in every tremor, because these hands have served, protected, and saved lives." When his speech ended, the entire hall stood up. The applause lasted for minutes. As Harold left the bank that day, Jessica thanked him. "Mr. Mitchell, you taught me the most valuable lesson of my life." "What was that?" Harold asked. "How important it is to respect people, to understand them." Harold smiled. "Don't forget that lesson, Jessica, and teach it to others." The moral of this story: never judge anyone based on their physical condition, age, or appearance, because you don't know what that person might have accomplished or faced in their past. Everyone has a story, and that story deserves respect. Harold's trembling hands were once the steadiest marksman's hands, and this truth taught everyone an important lesson. Appearances can be deceiving, but honor and service are eternal.